Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, the angriest dwarf alive in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And honestly, the easiest and most direct campaign that any dwarf has in the game. That's because of the way it's set up, the way the faction effects work, the way the lord effects work, and the kind of dynamics that are in play for this specific journey that Grombrindal is on, because it is a journey of vengeance. Specifically, it is a journey of vengeance against Malekith, and you're very well suited towards taking him out in this campaign. It is a bit annoying that he does start with ANGRIEST, so that means you do have to deal with 2 provincial capitals, but that's just part of the cost of doing business against Malekith. And your campaign objectives are to destroy Malekith, your campaign objective being that, as well as winning free battles for the Master Rune of Redbeard, which gives you melee attack as well as melee attack and leadership for allies in range. Then, of course, you have grudges against the High Elves, and then grudges against Dark Elves for the Master Rune of Spite, for Snorri's Whitebeard's final grudge, which is who Grombrindal really is in the lore. Malekith basically betrayed a deathbed oath that he had taken with Snorri, or rather, that got retconned in terms of the High Elf King made that oath that dwarves and elves would be friends forever, but basically Malekith betrayed his friend came back from dead with a desire of vengeance, and certainly Grombrindal represents that very well. He starts with a tier 2 minor settlement over here in the Spire, which can generate a good amount of income from a landmark, control, faction-wide, research rate, recruit rank for gyrocopters and gyrobomber units, as well as recruit rank for Iron Drake units. And these are faction-wide benefits. And suffice to say, out of all of the legendary lords, if you're not playing him, Grombrindal is kind of the one you want to acquire very early on through Confederation because of the kind of benefits he provides. Faction effect-wise, he gives 20% weapon strength against elves and can call upon the power of the Ancestor spirits. Now, the power of the Ancestor spirits gives you a ton of different benefits. One of them buffs up Grombrindal's personal combat power by quite a bit. Another one buffs up his army. Another one gives you an upkeep benefit, construction benefit, and all kinds of different things. But the one I prefer to use the most is Valea's protection, because this gives you a 20% casualty replenishment rate, 10 control, so any province you're going to take is going to easily gonna turn in towards positive control. But it's really that casualty replenishment rate that is worthwhile, because it means when you're playing a campaign as Grombrindal, you can actually avoid a lot of these early game battles and instead focus on the fun and exciting ones that you may want to deal with in a campaign. Also, you can get Iron Drakes and Quarrelers fairly quickly. And funnily enough about Iron Drakes, they're pretty damn good in auto-resolve. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about Grombrindal and why he is so supremely ridiculous in a campaign. See, he gets all kinds of benefits through his blue skill line. He obviously has his own special skill line, his Lord effects, melee defense for Quarrelers and Iron Drakes, as well as leadership for his entire army. But it's really the blue skill line that makes him stand out. He gives +3 recruit rank for all units faction-wide. So this is really where Grombrindal has a faction-wide effect, but you can get these even if you confederate them. But obviously, playing him, you will be able to more easily set it up. You reduce recruitment costs by up to -15%. You give yourself +15% campaign movement range for all characters faction-wide, and then 6% casualty replenishment as well, faction-wide, and global recruitment capacity, as well as having Lightning Strike. Then, on top of that, and these two do stack, you do get +15% campaign movement range extra for Grombrindal's army itself, melee defense +10 when defending, armor piercing damage when defending, so even if you're on the attack, and you do have powerful legendary lords to contend with, Maybe not so much Malekith because you can just kind of rush him, but when you're dealing with Valkia in a campaign, she can certainly be a nuisance to deal with. I mean, she's got already 16 units, and anyone who's ever faced Valkia in battle knows exactly the kind of issue she ends up being a lot of the time. Then you have Vigor Loss Reduction of minus 50% and a Wound Recovery Time of minus 3 turns. So even if you kill Grombrindal, he's usually going to be back on his feet quickly enough. And he's also pretty damn dangerous in melee. Like, he's got magical attacks, he's got armor-piercing weapon damage, he's got pretty good level of armor. All dwarves do, obviously. You know, Malachi notwithstanding. Then again, Malachi has a freaking gunship. But that longevity does stack with obstinacy. Then you have 33% ammunition for Iron Drakes and War Machine units. So that means all of your artillery, your gyrocopters, gyrobombers, as well as, yes, your thunder barges, as well as 20% missile strength for Iron Drakes and War Machine units. Like, if you're playing Malachi, you want to get Grombrindal as quickly as possible because he's the second best lord to lead an army in your entire campaign. He also has 35% speed for his entire army, which is actually even better than for a Slayer army than Ungrim's is, really. He loses base weapon damage for his army, but he gains armor-piercing weapon damage, and then Grombrindal has no fear, which makes him unbreakable, and increases his melee defense by 24, which is pretty ridiculous. Another benefit that we should talk about with regards to Grombrindal's entire campaign is how many quests he has, quest battles. Now, these quest battles are not really going to be too much of a problem for Grombrindal to deal with because, again, he has a really powerful army, and you don't necessarily need to rush against Malekith, by the way, in a campaign. You know, you can take your time, you can deal with Valkia, you can make some kind of temporary deal, and then deal with Malekith once you've secured Valkia if you want to make things easier on you. But the point about these quest battles, you get roughly 7,000, 6,000, at least 7,000 gold per quest battle, and so that's a huge level of money. And of course, you get all of these items. Not every single one of them is worth it. The set bonus gives you control in all provinces and diplomatic relations with dwarves. The key benefit, I would say, with Grombrindal is, like, yes, huge level of gold from that, but also the climate aspect. Because you see, you have frozen, you have wasteland, you have mountain, and you have savanna. That means if you're playing Grombrindal, you're in a really good position to confederate Malachi very quickly, or confederate any single other legendary lord of the dwarves, with maybe the exception of Forik, though even then with Forik it's usually going to work out. Interestingly enough, Forik tends to do the best in terms of being under AI control of all the dwarf legendary lord campaigns. With everyone else, it's kind of a question mark on how well they do. But that's the big point, and that's the big benefit in Grombrindal's campaign. If at least one or two of them, say for instance Forgrim and Bellegar, do very well in their campaigns and you gain control of their empires, well, suddenly all those significant benefits that you get through the blue skill line that you've been leveling over here, and I strongly recommend at least getting Absolutely Relentless done as quickly as possible. It will help you in the area that you're in. But if at least one other dwarf legendary lord does very well and you confederate them and you're really good at getting grudges settled, then you will start expanding to a ridiculous level. And keep in mind, you can always change what you want in terms of the Ancestor Spirit Blessing, and you can also, and you do also have all kinds of, you do also have the benefit of being able to reduce the cooldown between how long you can have an effect up by 10 turns with Time of the Ancestors. It's not strictly important to get it. And of course, you do have Ruin Warded Armor, Master-Crafted Weapon, and Aura of Endurance for melee defense and missile resistance. Grombrindal is honestly just a beast of a legendary lord, and every single time I've played him, like before Thrones of Decay came out, I would have said he was the only dwarf legendary lord worth playing a campaign as, even though he was isolated. Now, while Malachi is the better campaign from my perspective, I would still argue that Grombrindal is the second best by far. Malachi just wins out because of the adventure situation and because he has a dynamic and interesting start position with a lot of different decisions to be made over there. But yes, Grombrindal, Santa, Angry Santa of the Dwarves, is definitely a great campaign and one worth checking out. Costin here signing out. Stay tuned for more.